The man who waited outside basketball practice. My name is Jamal, and this happened during my senior year of high school. Basketball was basically my entire life back then. I wasn't one of those kids who thought he was definitely going to the NBA or anything like that, but I was good enough that playing in college was a realistic possibility. I was 6'3" by senior year, started at shooting guard, and had been on varsity since I was a sophomore. My school wasn't some nationally known basketball powerhouse, but we were good for our area. We usually made a decent run in the state tournament, and my senior year was supposed to be our best chance at winning something. Because of that, our coach took everything seriously. During the season, practices regularly lasted until 7 or 8 at night. If we had an important game coming up, a few of us would stay even later to get shots up. I did that more than anybody. My mom used to complain about it constantly. She'd tell me there was no reason for a high school kid to be walking out of a gym at 9:30 on a school night. I always told her the same thing. If I want to play in college, I have to work. Looking back, I wish I had listened to her at least once. The school itself was pretty old. It was built sometime in the 70s and had been expanded in sections over the years, so the layout made almost no sense. The main academic building connected to a smaller hallway that led toward the gym, locker rooms, weight room, and athletic offices. Behind the gym was a second parking lot, mostly used by teachers and athletes. During basketball season, that was where I parked. The front lot was brighter and closer to the main road, but the back lot was right outside the locker room entrance. After a long practice, I didn't feel like walking around the entire building just to get to my car. Normally, there were enough people around that it didn't matter. Coaches, wrestlers, cheerleaders, custodians, parents picking kids up. But once you got past 8:30 or 9, the place became completely different. The halls went quiet, half the lights automatically shut off. The parking lot emptied, and behind the gym, there was nothing except a baseball field, some woods, and a narrow service road that eventually connected to a residential street. The whole thing started in early January. It was a Wednesday night. We had a home game against one of our biggest rivals that Friday, and coach had us practicing late. Most of the team left around 8:15. I stayed behind with my best friend Marcus. Marcus was our point guard. We had played together since middle school and were close enough that our families knew each other. He was the one person on the team who stayed almost as late as I did. That night we spent maybe another 40 minutes shooting. Coach was in his office doing paperwork, but by around 9, he came into the gym and told us to get out. He said he wasn't staying there all night because we wanted to miss jump shots after practice. Marcus laughed and told him I was the one missing. I threw the ball at him. It was completely normal. We changed in the locker room, grabbed our backpacks, and walked out through the side athletic entrance. It was freezing, not snowing, but cold enough that the pavement looked shiny from frost. Marcus's dad had picked him up earlier because his car was in the shop, so he walked toward the front entrance where he was waiting. My car was alone in the back lot. It was an old black Honda Accord my uncle had sold me cheap. As I started walking toward it, I noticed another car parked near the far end of the lot. It was a dark SUV, maybe black, maybe dark blue. It was difficult to tell under the yellow parking lights. The engine appeared to be running. I could see exhaust coming from behind it. That wasn't immediately weird. Parents sometimes waited there for athletes. I figured whoever was inside was waiting for someone from wrestling, or maybe a custodian. I got in my car and left. The SUV stayed there. I didn't think about it again. Friday was the game. Our gym was packed. We won by 11, and I had one of my better games of the season. I scored 24 points, which was enough that afterward a local sports reporter asked me a few questions outside the locker room. By the time everything ended, it was close to 10. My parents had come to the game, but they left before me because I told them I'd drive myself home. Marcus stayed behind too. The two of us walked out together. As soon as we reached the parking lot, he said, "Isn't that the same car?" I knew exactly what he meant. The dark SUV was parked near the far end again, same general spot, engine running. I said I thought so. Marcus stared at it for a few seconds. "You know who that is?" "No." "Probably somebody's dad." "Probably." We walked to my car. Because Marcus's car was still being repaired, I offered to drop him off. The SUV didn't move as we pulled away. We drove to Marcus's house, which was maybe 12 minutes from the school. When I reached his neighborhood, he told me to stop. I thought I had passed his house. Then he pointed behind us. About 5 cars back was a dark SUV. I looked through my mirror. It was difficult to tell whether it was the same one. Marcus said, "That thing came out of the school lot after us." I hadn't noticed. I asked if he was sure. He said he saw it turn out maybe 30 seconds after we did. The SUV continued straight when I turned onto Marcus's street. That made both of us relax. We laughed about it. Marcus said maybe some scout was obsessed with me after my 24-point game. I told him scouts didn't usually stalk players through residential neighborhoods. I dropped him off and went home. Nothing happened. Saturday, nothing. Sunday, nothing. By Monday I had forgotten about the SUV. Then after practice that night I saw it again. This time the vehicle wasn't in the back lot. It was parked along the service road behind the baseball field. I only saw it because the headlights came on when I walked outside. It sat maybe 100 yards away, partly hidden behind the chain link fence. The headlights remained on. I couldn't see the driver. Coach came out a minute later. He was locking the athletic doors. I asked him if he knew who owned the SUV. He looked toward it. "What SUV?" I pointed. By the time he looked, the headlights were off. The vehicle blended into the darkness. Coach said, "Probably somebody cutting through." I didn't want to sound paranoid, so I dropped it. I got in my car. The SUV didn't follow me home. The next strange thing happened Wednesday. I finished practice around 8. I opened my locker and found an envelope sitting on top of my backpack. There was no name written on it. I assumed one of my teammates left it there as a joke. Inside was a printed photograph. It was me. The picture had been taken during Friday's game. I was standing at the free throw line. The photograph looked like it had been taken from somewhere behind the basket. At first, I thought it might be from the school photographer. Then I turned it over. Someone had written, "You play better when you're angry." I just stood there looking at it. Marcus walked over and asked what it was. I showed him. His smile disappeared. He asked where I got it. I told him it was inside my locker. My locker didn't have a lock during practice. None of ours did. The locker room itself was supposed to be restricted, but during games and practices, people were constantly moving through the athletic hallway. Managers, coaches, janitors, other athletes. It wasn't impossible for someone to enter. Marcus told me to show Coach. Coach stared at the picture for a long time. He asked if I had any idea who sent it. I said no. He asked if someone from another school was messing with me. Again, I said no. I told him about the SUV. That got his attention. Coach took the photo. He called our athletic director, Mr. Simmons. Mr. Simmons came down from his office and asked me to explain everything again. They checked the hallway camera near the locker room. Unfortunately, it didn't show the locker room entrance directly. There was another corridor near the gym where people disappeared from view. Nothing useful appeared on the footage. My mom was furious when she heard about it. She wanted me to stop staying late immediately. I told her I would, and for about a week I did. I left practice with the team. I parked near other cars. If Marcus was driving, we left together. Nothing else happened. Then we had an away game. It was against a school almost 45 minutes away. The game ended around 9:30. The team traveled by bus, so nobody had driven individually. As we walked out toward the bus, Marcus suddenly grabbed my shoulder. "Jamal." I followed his eyes. Across the visitor parking lot was the SUV, same shape, same dark color, parked under a light. I knew then that it wasn't random. Whoever was in that car had driven 45 minutes to watch us play. Marcus immediately called Coach over. Coach looked at the SUV. He started walking toward it. The second he did, the vehicle reversed. It left the parking lot fast enough that several parents turned to watch. Coach tried to get the license plate but couldn't. On the bus ride home, nobody joked about it anymore. Coach sat near the front talking quietly on his phone. When we got back to school, a police officer was waiting. He took a report. I described the SUV as well as I could. I told him about the photograph. The officer asked whether I had received strange messages online. That question made me remember something. A few weeks earlier, I had received several Instagram follow requests from an account called Next Level Hoops 24. The profile picture was a basketball. The account had almost no followers and no posts. I ignored it. Then it sent me a message. At first it looked normal. It said, "You've got college potential. Keep working." I had assumed it was some local basketball person or spam account. I never responded. The officer asked to see it. I opened Instagram. There were more messages now. I hadn't noticed them because they went into requests. One said, "You need to stop fading left on your jumper." Another, "Your coach doesn't use you right." And the most recent one, "Good game tonight. 17 would have been 20 if you made your free throws." I had scored 17 points in the away game. The message had been sent less than 10 minutes after the final buzzer. Marcus read it over my shoulder. He said, "That guy was in the gym." The police officer told me to block the account and make mine private. He took screenshots. My mom insisted on picking me up. For the next several days, either one of my parents or Marcus drove with me. The SUV disappeared. Then something happened at school that made everything much worse. It was a Tuesday. We didn't have practice because coach had given us a recovery day. I stayed after school for a college meeting with our guidance counselor. The meeting ended around 5. Most students were gone. I walked toward the athletic parking lot because my car was still back there. When I reached it, I noticed something on the windshield. Another envelope. My name was written on this one. I looked around before touching it. The parking lot was almost empty. I grabbed the envelope and immediately went back inside. The security officer at the front desk opened it with me. Inside was another photograph. This one wasn't from basketball. It showed me standing outside Marcus's house. I recognized the clothes. It had been taken the night I dropped him off after our rivalry game. The SUV had followed us there. On the back were 6 words. "You should not have told them." The school called the police immediately. That changed the investigation from strange harassment to clear stalking. My parents came. So did Marcus's dad. The police asked whether anyone recently had problems with me. Ex-girlfriends, arguments, former teammates, teachers, parents of other players. I couldn't think of anyone. That night my dad installed cameras around our house. He also started parking his truck behind my car so nobody could approach it without appearing on camera. For almost 2 weeks, nothing happened. Those 2 weeks were probably the worst part, in a strange way. Every practice felt different. Every person in the bleachers got my attention. Every dark vehicle in the parking lot made my heart jump. Basketball stopped being fun. I started playing worse. I was distracted. Coach noticed. After one practice, he pulled me aside. He said, "Don't let this guy take basketball from you." I understood what he meant, but it was easy for him to say. He wasn't the one wondering whether someone was watching his house at night. Still, I tried. Our team reached the district playoffs. The first game was at home. The gym was completely packed. Police were already aware of the stalking situation, so an officer was present near the entrance. I played well. For the first time in weeks, I forgot about everything. We won. Afterward, I stayed with the team instead of leaving alone. When I got to the locker room, Marcus was standing in front of my locker. He looked pale. I asked what happened. He pointed inside. There was a small black box on the bench, not cardboard, plastic. Inside was a USB drive. Coach called the police before anybody touched it. An officer collected it. We were told not to open whatever was on it ourselves. The next afternoon, detectives came to our house. They had viewed the drive. There were video files on it. The first showed basketball footage, dozens of clips of me during games and practices, not public broadcasts. Most were recorded from the bleachers. Another showed me leaving school. Another showed me at a gas station. Another showed me and Marcus walking into a restaurant. Then the detective showed my parents one still image. I wasn't supposed to see it at first, but I did. It was my bedroom window, taken from outside our house at night. My curtains were closed. The detective told us the person had been watching our home. My mom started crying. My dad looked like he wanted to kill whoever was responsible. Police increased patrols near our house. The school banned anyone without a ticket from playoff games and placed staff near the locker room hallway. I stopped driving myself anywhere. For a 17-year-old who had spent years trying to feel independent, that was humiliating. But I wasn't arguing anymore. 3 nights later, the cameras at our house sent an alert. It was 2:13 in the morning. I was asleep. My dad woke up because his phone buzzed. He checked the camera. Someone was standing across the street. Dark jacket, baseball cap. They were facing our house. My dad called police. The man walked away before officers arrived. But the camera got a better image than anything we had before. Still not a clear face, but enough to show his clothes and build. More importantly, another camera caught a vehicle. Dark SUV. Police now had part of the plate. That gave them something to work with. The registered vehicle belonged to a man named Andre Collins. He was 42. The name meant nothing to me. Police showed me a photograph. I had never seen him before, or at least, I didn't think I had. Then Coach recognized him. Andre used to be an assistant basketball coach at another school in our conference. Not currently. Years earlier, Coach knew the name because Andre had been fired after an argument with administrators and parents. That still didn't explain why he cared about me. Police went to speak with him. Andre denied knowing me. He claimed the SUV had been sold months earlier. That turned out to be a lie. But lying about a vehicle wasn't enough to prove everything. Police kept investigating. Then our school's athletic director found something. During my sophomore season, Andre had attended one of our summer basketball camps. Not as a coach. He had volunteered with a local travel basketball organization that was scouting players. Apparently, Andre became convinced he should be managing young athletes. He tried contacting several families about private training and recruitment help. Most ignored him. My dad vaguely remembered him. Andre had spoken to my parents after one of my games when I was 15. He told them I had potential and offered private workouts. My dad said no. That was it. At least we thought that was it. Investigators searched Andre's online accounts. He had created several fake basketball profiles. One was Next Level Hoops 24. That was enough for police to obtain a warrant for more of his devices. The search of his house happened while we were preparing for the district championship. Nobody told me the full details until later, because my parents didn't want me completely losing focus. What they found was disturbing. Andre had files on dozens of high school basketball players. Stats, schedules, social media profiles. Game footage, home addresses, parents' names, recruiting information. But my folder was much larger than the others. It included years of material. Apparently, after my dad rejected his training offer, Andre continued following my basketball career. At first, it seemed to be some kind of obsession with proving that he understood my game better than my actual coaches. He wrote notes about everything: my shooting percentage, my weaknesses, how often I drove left versus right, which coaches attended our games. He attended several games without ever introducing himself. As I became a better player, the obsession grew. He started believing my coaches were wasting me. He wrote long notes describing how he could turn me into a Division I player if I would listen to him. The messages online were supposed to make me curious. When I ignored them, he became angrier. Then he started following me outside basketball. Police found the photographs, the SUV videos, copies of my school schedule, pictures of my parents, pictures of Marcus, and something else, a notebook. The detective later showed parts of it to my dad. Andre wrote about wanting to speak to me alone. He complained that my parents, coach, and friends were blocking access. He had apparently planned to approach me after a late practice. That was why he kept parking behind the gym. He wanted a time when I was alone. The night he followed me to Marcus's house, he was trying to see whether I regularly drove teammates home. The envelope in my locker was meant to get my attention. The second envelope was meant to scare me because I reported him. The USB drive was an escalation. Police arrested Andre. He was charged with stalking, harassment, unlawful surveillance, trespassing connected to the school property, and several other offenses. But there was still one question nobody could answer. How had he gotten into our locker room? Our security footage never clearly showed him entering. Then one of our assistant coaches remembered seeing a man helping carry equipment after a home game earlier in the season. He assumed the man was a parent. Another employee remembered him wearing a volunteer badge. Police searched Andre's home again and found several old passes from athletic events. He had apparently reused an outdated badge to make himself look like school staff or a volunteer. During crowded games, nobody questioned him. That was probably how he placed things in my locker. Andre remained in jail while the case moved forward. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. We played in the district championship 3 days after his arrest. I scored 21. Marcus hit a 3 late in the fourth quarter that put us ahead. We won by 4. I remember standing on the court afterward while everyone rushed out of the bleachers. For a second, I looked automatically toward the top row. I was searching for him. Then I remembered he couldn't be there. That feeling was strange, relief mixed with anger. He had gotten into my head so badly that even after he was arrested, I expected to see him watching. We eventually lost in the state tournament a couple weeks later. Normally, That would have destroyed me. It was my last high school game. I had dreamed about going farther. But when the final buzzer sounded, I felt grateful more than anything. I hugged Marcus. I hugged Coach. My parents waited outside the locker room. And for the first time all season, I walked into a parking lot without checking every dark SUV first. Andre's case ended several months later. He accepted a plea agreement. I don't know every legal detail, and some of the charges were changed or combined, but he was sentenced to prison followed by probation and a restraining order that prevented him from contacting me or my family. The travel organization he had once worked with publicly stated he had no involvement with them anymore. Our school made changes too. The athletic entrance stayed locked during practices. Visitors had to check in. Outdated staff badges were deactivated and replaced. Nobody could enter the locker room hallway during games without current identification. Players were encouraged to lock personal lockers, and coach stopped letting anyone leave late practice alone. If somebody stayed for extra shots, somebody else stayed too. I ended up playing college basketball, not Division I. Andre was wrong about that. I went to a smaller school where I actually had a chance to play meaningful minutes instead of sitting on a bench just because the program had a bigger name. I was happy with it. Basketball eventually became normal again. But there are certain things I never completely got over. I hate empty gyms at night. I hate walking through parking lots after everybody else has left. If somebody is sitting in a parked car with the engine running, I notice immediately. And if someone talks to me like they know more about my life than I told them, I don't automatically assume they're just a fan. The scariest part of what happened wasn't that Andre was some completely random man. It was that he thought he knew me. He had watched enough games to convince himself that he understood my future. He studied my jumper, my habits, my coaches, my family. He turned a high school kid playing basketball into something he believed belonged to him. For months I thought the dark SUV was the frightening part. It wasn't. The frightening part was realizing how many times Andre had been inside the gym before I ever noticed him. He had probably sat a few rows behind my parents. He had probably walked past me in hallways. He had stood near the locker room wearing a badge nobody bothered to check. He didn't suddenly appear one night in that parking lot. He had been watching for years. There's one memory I still think about more than all the others. It was that first Wednesday night. Marcus and I finished shooting late. Coach kicked us out. Marcus walked toward the front entrance. I walked alone toward my car, and that SUV sat at the far end of the parking lot with its engine running. At the time, I barely looked at it. Now, I know exactly who was sitting inside. And I know he wasn't waiting for somebody else's kid. He was waiting for me.